Indonesia. I welcome you to this week's Environment Show, a special edition that has brought us all the way to the island of Sumatra. Here in just 20 years, almost half of the forest has been destroyed. The consequences for the local orangutan have been devastating. The species on track to become the first great ape to disappear. Stay with us as we investigate some of the most threatened species in the world. Coming up, the Sumatran orangutan faces an uncertain fate as its natural habitat is lost on a mass scale. Next, we head to South Africa, where sophisticated crime gangs have made 2011 one of the worst years for poaching of wild animals. And finally, a bid to save Indonesia's marine turtle population. Conservationists work round the clock to rescue the highly prized eggs. Here, along with Borneo, rest the last remaining wild orangutans in the world. The Sumatran species is at greatest risk though. Less than 7,000 roaming these forests, down 90% in the last century. We came to the Gunung Lausa National Park to understand how their fate may be turned around. One of the last surviving orangutans on the island of Sumatra. To come face to face with the striking red hair that distinguishes this great ape, one must often walk for several hours. The man of the forest, as its name implies, is increasingly hard to find.
The rate of acceleration of habitat loss and population loss is increasing all the time, and that's what's most worrying. But unless we change the way we protect the habitat, protect the orangutans, they will go extinct in my lifetime, your lifetime, our lifetimes.
This female and her infant are protected in the national park. The trees that make up this forest won't be felled, at least legally. Today, Western governments are trying to convince the Indonesian authorities to strengthen land use policies in other non-protected areas. A UN report published in September proves it could even be economically beneficial to do so.
People traditionally always look at forests as something that you can exploit. And this report shows that if you leave the forest there and value the value of the carbon, the water that comes out, the flood prevention, that value can compete very well with most land uses.
Most, but not all. The use of land for oil palm plantations is also profitable. The industry, the single largest agricultural threat to the orangutan. Fabroni is part of an NGO that defends and protects the Sumatran species. He takes us to see the land where the great apes once lived.
This is a land clearing. When this place is a forest before, it's a long time ago, maybe 100 years ago, this is a orangutan habitat. This is the ideal place for orangutan.
Today, it's being cleared for a fresh batch of oil palms. Before, it was a rubber plantation, a habitat well suited to orangutans, but far less valuable.
Sometimes from the side of economic is maybe it's okay, but for the environment, I think it's not good. You know, the palm oil, it can kill us in the future.
The Indonesian government has long been accused of unnecessary deforestation. We asked whether it was possible to extend the protected areas.
Instead of trying to extend the orangutan habitat, we're now concentrating on restoring the existing habitat.
Many outside organisations believe Indonesia is now on the right track. Today, there exists a number of policies to protect the forests and the orangutan habitat. What's left now is applying the laws, or risk being responsible for the first great ape to disappear. While orangutans are critically endangered, it's not the most under threat species in the world. According to a WWF report, it's the tiger that takes top place, the big cat under threat from deforestation and rampant poaching. Next comes the polar bear, vulnerable to extinction if warming trends continue to melt their homeland in the Arctic. Third is the Pacific walrus, followed by the Magellanic penguin, also victims of climate change. And finally, the leatherback turtle comes in at fifth, in decline mainly due to unintentional fishing. with habitat loss and climate change, there's another equally dangerous man-made threat to wild animals, and that's poaching. South Africa is particularly exposed. Their lions are hunted for their bones, rhinoceros for their horns. Law enforcement efforts have now been stepped up to halt the trade, hovering at around 1 rhino per day.
This private game reserve, only 2 hours' drive from Cape Town, was the latest to fall victim to armed poachers. Their targets were 3 rhinos.
He's had the right drugs. He's got a very good chance.
The female was saved, but the 2 males had no chance. Their horns were cut off with chainsaws. The reserve has already been hit twice. The owner is spending €10,000 a month on security, but he still feels very vulnerable.
We were trained. Even with this, we managed to chase them off twice, and they came with helicopters. They're heavily armed, they're well experienced, and the odds lie in their favor. The odds really lie in there. It's a lot easier to poach a rhino than it is to protect it. We've got 7,500 hectares over here. You know, where does a 2-ton rhino go? Anywhere at once.
So far this year, 280 rhinos have been killed in South Africa, more than 1 a day. Campaigners are mobilizing to stop the massacre. They want action from the government.
Our Minister of Environmental Affairs is concerned. They want to actually make changes. Even the Minister is looking at the possibility of legalizing trade in rhino horn. But then you have the counter-argument where people say, well, a rhino's horn should be on the rhino. You cannot say that you can legalize it because then you're endorsing that to the Asian market.
With help from Interpol, authorities in southern Africa are working together. There are training programs for police forces in the region. Border controls are tighter, but there are still weak links.
Where there are problems still with it is that you are still able to move trophies from trophy hunting over international borders, which is in some cases causing a loophole, because you're now getting people coming in and doing trophy hunting of rhinos and then just moving the product out once they've done that.
The South African government may reduce hunting quotas because the situation with some animal products is out of control. Lion bones, for example, are in record demand. South Africa is an El Dorado for smugglers, with nearly 400 farms where predators are raised. Rhinos are in the last chance saloon. Poachers can sell a single horn for €100,000. The struggle for survival is on, and it's going to be a fight to the finish.
Turtle meat is not a preferred dish in this village in northern Sumatra, but it is on the island of Bali. Demand for the reptile meat has driven up prices and increased smuggling of eggs from Indonesia's isolated beaches. That's why certain rangers have begun to patrol the shore in a bid to beat the poachers at their own game.
An isolated beach on the Indonesian island of Java. This green turtle has returned here to lay her eggs. The largest hard-shelled sea turtle in the world is endangered, under threat from poachers. Suparno and his fellow rangers patrol the beach every night. They try to get to the eggs before anyone else can. They keep the eggs in safety for 2 months until they hatch and then release the baby turtles into the sea.
The main difficulty is that our facilities here are insufficient. We need lots of things, like more equipment and radios.
One of the main markets for poachers and smugglers is the neighbouring island of Bali. Most beaches here aren't suitable for nesting because of the people, activity, light and noise. But there's a high demand for turtle meat and eggs, although the sale of any products from the animal is illegal. This street vendor admitted she's selling turtle meat.
People are still demanding a lot of turtle egg and turtle meat, especially in Bali. Smuggling is increasing every year, involving a lot of multi-billion rupiah industry.
A young turtle can sell for up to $200, big money in Indonesia. Wayan Raga says he runs a conservation centre on Bali but admits he neither breeds nor releases the animals here. Yet he has more than 600 turtles. 300 of these he took in 2009 from the protected beach in Java, thanks to this letter of permission from the local conservation department.
This is a hobby for me. Whatever it costs, it's not a problem. Everything here is legal.
But WWF is far from convinced that everything's above board.
On what purpose it is need to be kept away from the natural habitat? If it is intended to be educational purpose, does it need to be that much, 300 of hatchlings?
Indonesia's conservation department refused to comment on this case, but said it's aware of misconduct implicating regional officials and is looking at increasing the penalty for those caught. Meanwhile, thanks to the rangers, these turtles have been saved, for the moment at least, from poachers and corruption. But even then the odds aren't good. Only 1 in 1,000 babies will survive to return and lay eggs of its own.
That brings us to the end of the show. Thanks for joining us here in Indonesia and on the beautiful island of Sumatra. And as the rain starts around me, I bid you farewell and I'll see you in Paris next week.